Hello and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today. And in today's episode, we are going to review some of the important headlines and news about Africa. So first, we start with some news from Somalia, and at least 4 soldiers were killed and 5 wounded on Tuesday when a roadside bomb exploded outside a military camp in a town near Mogadishu. Officials said that the blast in Afgui, about 30 kilometers southwest of the capital, took place a day after militants carried out a raid on the same town that was repulsed by government troops. Further, South Kenyan soldiers working under the African Union mission in Somalia reportedly killed 7 Al-Shabaab fighters in a Somali district on the country's borders. And from Zimbabwe, a typhoid outbreak in the Zimbabwe capital has so far claimed 2 lives, with authorities taking steps to prevent further deaths. Typhoid fever is a disease spread by food and contaminated water. Locals say that in the recent case of the outbreak, poor sanitation services and lack of access to potable water created a breeding ground for a disease outbreak. And from the world of football, and 7-time champions Egypt faced Ghana in Port Gentil on Wednesday, needing only a point to qualify for the quarterfinals alongside the Black Stars. And Egypt can even go through regardless if Mali failed to beat Uganda in the other Group D match. But a win for Egypt would allow them to leapfrog Ghana and advance as group winners. And to shed more light on today's match, we are joined over the phone by Mr. Sherif El Demerdash, former football player, and he will tell us about his expectations for today's match. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Sherif.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Sherif, what are your expectations for tonight's match between Egypt and Ghana?
Of course, hopefully, we should pray for the national team to win this game.
Yes.
And to go further one step in the African Cup competition. It's a very difficult game, but I have to remind our auditors that Egypt has won last month or maybe last 2 months. They have won the same team 1-0 in the Cup World qualifying games.
Yes.
And we won once. We can win today, inshallah. Our team has the capability of winning the game. I mean, we have a selection of players which is very unique. It depends today about the tactical plan. I mean, how the trainer, the coach, the Egyptian coach, Mr. Cooper, will use this elite of players in a tactful game.
Yes.
To win this game. I mean, you have to have the desire, the determination to win. Today it's a game of, let's say, self-confidence, persistence, and win. We can win. This is the attitude I expect from our players.
And how do you weigh the progress of each of the teams so far?
Well, each of the team, I mean, Egypt, the first match was with Mali was a little bit disappointing. I mean, the players were, let's say, you have to give more free room for the Egyptian players to, let's say, to give what they really have. Okay, to abide to tactics and to the the game. I mean, each game has a plan. You have to abide to the tactics of this game, but still you have to give a space, room for the Egyptian players, I mean, to excel. The first match with Mali, the Egyptians were, let's say...
Mr. Sherif El Demerdash, thank you for your expectations for today. And back to our news, and we have from Africa, the ECOWAS Commission has said its coalition force in Gambia would remain for the next 6 months, as requested by President Adama Barrow. It said that the mission in Gambia was to secure peace, contrary to reports that there was a military force in the country after former President Yahya Jammeh's departure. More in the following report.
Prisoners' rights groups voiced concern they were just making room for more political inmates. A first group of 300 were released from the Mpimba Central Prison in Bujumbura, but authorities aim to free some 2,500 of the total, which stood at 10,051 last month. The Prisoners' Defense Group called for the release of over 4,000 political detainees since the start of the crisis in Burundi. The group also said the pardon by President Pierre Nkurunziza was also aimed at making space for the victims of numerous arbitrary arrests, which add to the repression which Burundi suffers. Burundi has always denied holding political prisoners. The African country has been in the throes of a serious, sometimes deadly political crisis since April 2015, when Nkurunziza announced his intention to run for a third term, which opponents said was unconstitutional. He went on to win an election in July that was boycotted by the opposition and criticized by outside observers. The violence in Burundi has so far killed at least 500 people and driven more than 300,000 to leave the country.
Burundi began releasing its political prisoners under presidential pardon. Authorities have released the first group of 300 prisoners from the central prison in Bujumbura with an aim to set free some 2,500 from the populated jails. More in the following report.
Low prices and low demand of rubber in Ivory Coast have forced farmers to switch to other crops, potentially preventing the country from reaching its goal of doubling output by 2020. The world's top cocoa grower and also Africa's leading rubber producer, with an output of up to 7% to 340,000 tons in 2015, is bursting at the seams in a rather uninspiring manner. Ivory Coast had a rubber export output of 240,000 tons in 2011, more than half of the continent's total production. At the time, rising oil prices fueled demand for natural rubber, and global production had grown steadily over the past decade, reaching around 11 million tons in 2011. While Asian producers, including Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia, dominate world output, Ivorian farmers, frustrated by cocoa's low returns, turn to rubber and the more stable income it provides. The Ivorian Natural Rubber Association, APR-OMAC, had projected the production of 600,000 tons in 2020. It said, Ivory Coast's government needs to take measures to improve the price of rubber and then sensitize the population to give a positive image of the rubber industry. It said the government needs to introduce courses on rubber farming and have students learn about it in colleges. Then the country will slowly start seeing people returning back to rubber farming.
And that was a report about farmers in the Ivory Coast who have been turning to rubber as stable alternative to cocoa, with the country reportedly aiming for a target output of 600,000 tons by 2020. Now, dear viewers, we'll go to have a report about Burundi and the release of political prisoners, so stay tuned.
ECOWAS Commission Chief Marseille de Souza briefed members of the diplomatic corps and partner organizations on the political situation in the Gambia on Tuesday in Abuja. D'Souza said that retaining troops in that country would be decided by the chiefs of army staff, adding that by the end of the week, the forces will fall back. He said President Adama Barrow would like ECOWAS to have a sufficient force on ground for about 6 months, also adding that the grouping will see which troops will be withdrawn and which would be retained. He said the ECOWAS mission in the Gambia was to secure peace, contrary to reports that there was a military force in the country after former President Yahya Jammeh's departure. The Commission's president said that member countries handled the cost of maintaining the troops. He also confirmed that the Gambian armed forces welcomed the ECOWAS coalition force. He reiterated that Jammeh departed the Gambia for Equatorial Guinea on Friday after final mediation efforts by President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz of Mauritania and Alpha Condé of Guinea. He also said that the requests made by Jammeh, which were also contained in the joint declaration by ECOWAS, AU, and the UN, were under review. He said the requests had yet to be validated by the authorities.